I will go.
All right, yeah, you should be able to hear it.
We could talk about sometimes there's good thing.
Test, 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 test.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, you can hear it. All right.
Okay, we're good. And I had to talk like you that one. And of course, and it's like if I go in there, now we know that it is nothing. So like, the other side, so can't you? Yeah, and then you're like, I like the one where there's yeah, that sounds like a right. It wasn't necessary, but I was like, okay, you're. Like a lot of it. Yeah, I think a little bit.
Hello, everybody. Oh my goodness, we've got all the tech working tonight and I don't have to shout. Well, welcome to our second presentation here at Hopkins. We're super excited to be here in this larger facility with all kinds of good tech. Hello to anybody who's streaming from home. We've got it all set up so that the slides and presenter picture and sound are all streaming live on our YouTube. So if you have anybody that you want to share the presentation with, if you look at Monterey Audubon Society YouTube, you can share the link of the live streaming right now, and it automatically posts immediately after we turn everything off tonight too. So there's no more waiting for my phone to buffer and get it all loaded after I've recorded it from my phone. So we're super excited to be here. I forgot to introduce myself. I think I know most all of you. I'm Shannon Simpson, Executive Director, and we're so thrilled to have you all here. I want to take a quick second to introduce Deb Kramer. Deb is our second full-time employee. She just started 2 weeks ago now, week and a half ago, as our new volunteer and community engagement manager. She's going to be helping out coordinating all of our volunteers, helping out with all of our outreach events, and everything in between. As a small organization, that could include all kinds of things. Like her first week on the job, she helped us stuff 1,100 envelopes to go out to people who have let their membership lapse to us or who have joined the National Audubon Society but never joined locally here. So we're really excited to have her here. And we're really excited to get started tonight with Judi. I'm going to bring Judi on up. Judi Romero is our assistant project biologist for the Black Oystercatcher monitoring program. Judi, how long have you been in that role?
Since 2019.
Since 2019. So this is 7th season, if I mathed right in public. Awesome. We're so thrilled to have her here to talk about the Black Oystercatcher monitoring program. And for all of you who don't volunteer for that program yet, we are doing one additional little later training tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow's Wednesday, the 13th at 10 a.m. to 12:30 on Zoom. The link's on our website. And if you aren't able to attend that training, we'll have it recorded and we can get you set up to start volunteering with us for that program if you're interested. As always, snacks and stuff in the back, you're welcome to grab them throughout the program. Restrooms are through this door over here. And I think that's all I've got for you tonight. Thanks. Here you go, Judi.
Okay, hello, welcome all. So in case you didn't already know what we were talking about, so we're talking about the Central Coast Black Oystercatcher Monitoring Project. So this is specifically us here on the Central Coast. So I'm just going to get started actually, because I'm going to get ahead of myself. So first of all, who are we talking about in case you do not know what a black oystercatcher is? So this is a black oystercatcher, pretty large, decent shorebird about the size of a gull. They have a dark brown head and a lighter brown body, little pink legs, bright red bill. If you have ever heard their call, it's very distinct. I don't have any recordings of the call right now, but you will probably hear them throughout the day. There are 3 pairs just behind us at the Hopkins Marine Station that I did check on earlier. They're all there hanging out, doing what they do. But they are very territorial during the breeding season. So this is pretty much prime time for them to be breeding and being territorial. Their nests are, if you're familiar with other birds, snowy plovers will nest on the ground. They'll kind of make little scrapes. They're going to have the same types of nests. So they're going to nest on the rocks, on the rocky intertidal kind of areas. And then they eat limpets, mussels, and kind of things like that. So that's just getting started on who we're talking about, who we're paying attention to. And then throughout the program, I will probably refer them to as BLOY. So that's their shorter name. So there's the ornithologist organization that names all of them. And so they're short named for many different birds. There's going to be BLOY. Another example, brown pelican is burpee, which is one of my favorite ones. So just real quick, in case you're wondering when I just say BLOY that you're just making things up now. Okay, so there was just the whole Black Oystercatcher monitoring project. So what I was talking about is, so we are the Central Coast because were on the Central Coast. But the Black Oystercatcher Monitoring Project started in 2011. So there were scientists up in Alaska, and they were showing that there was a lack of demographic information heading further south into their range. So there's about a global population from about 12,000 to 17,000, and they only go up from Alaska all the way down on the coast to Mexico. So they're not found like on the East Coast, for example. So this is the only places that you're going to see them. So there are different regions here. So the Oregon region, the northern region, Washington. Oregon's going to be in the southern region, which is the central region. So south of that, Mendocino, Sonoma. And this is us all the way down here. So we do encompass both the Monterey region and then up in Santa Cruz, the other biologist is the one who does the Santa Cruz and South San Mateo area. So my region is going to be from Monterey, from the Coast Guard Pier, all the way up to Point Lobos. Anyways, back to the story that I have gotten a little sidetracked and ahead of myself. So the initiative they were talking about started back in 2011. So from 2012 to 2022, they had all this data from that. So they had different groups. They had, each of them had their own biologist, and then they had a number of volunteers. So it is a community science project. So I have a number of community volunteers who helped us. Over 160 trained volunteers and biologists participated. These are a number of groups that kind of helped us, for different areas that we want to go to, state parks, the Bureau of Land Management, the California Coastal National Monument. So that was just, a little bit of extra information of it was. So showing that it was a very large project. Okay, so that project started, and then, so what happened with that? So they were doing a 10-year study. So this is the name of the article with the results of the study, Black Oystercatcher, Hematos bachmani, that is the Latin name, productivity in California. In case you wanted to look it up, this is their article. So from their findings of, all the way from Washington down to California, they found that there wasn't a general trend from what they found. So the northern region, which if you remember, it was kind of up in Washington, a little bit in Alaska, they had a higher productivity, so 60%. The central region, which is Oregon and Northern California, had about 46%. And us, we're in the southern region, we had 37%, which is not good. But if you average all of those together, so from their data, it's about 50%. So from that, it's kind of like not a significant kind of downturn or upturn of like, are they doing good? Are they doing bad? It's kind of in the middle. So this is from what this study says. So this study was just recommending, continuing education and stewardship to people, and, if you can, to continue monitoring them. And also if they had other projects to do in the future, they thought that they have a good, so they eat, again, limpets and mussels. So, research on food availability. And then because they are pretty much only in the rocky intertidal area with sea level rise, it's going to get rid of some of, a lot of their habitat. Also food depending on cooler waters. If the water's too hot, it's not going to be as many invertebrates. So, they can be important to those kinds of research projects, but it's also, they recommend for people to do them, but their study had ended. So they were done with that. That was their conclusion. So after that, we started our own index survey. So we do still want to continue monitoring all of the sites that we have been monitoring for those past 10 years. So I started in 2019. It started in 2012. So I didn't start at the very beginning, but yes. So we as a group want to continue. So we may or may not be able to continue this long term. So what we started was, again, index survey. So what that is, it's going to be another 10-year long index survey, and it's a randomly sampled number of pairs. So if we can't do the whole amount of pairs. So we do the whole amount of pairs every week to check on them, all the BLOY, all the territories. And so if we can't do that, consistently long-term, then we do want there to be some consistent monitoring. And so at least if we cannot continue all of it, to at least have a selected sample of breeding pairs to monitor after that. So these are the randomly selected. So it was a randomly selected pair, depending on how large the territory was, how many pairs they have. Some have a few more, some have a few less. So, and then these letters, PL is Point Lobos, PB, Pebble Beach, MP, Monterey Peninsula, South, this is San Mateo County, and Santa Cruz. So that's also how we're numbering them, just in case you were wondering what those numbers mean. So back to our study areas. Like I had mentioned before, the South Coast, this is my study area. The project biologist does the North Coast once a week, and then she will also come and join me doing the South Coast once a month. So we will do both of those. So these are our study areas. I did mention earlier about the South Coast, Point Lobos to the city of Monterey. So the North Coast starts at Natural Bridges, and it goes down to Pescadero State Beach in South San Mateo. So this is what we're monitoring. And I had gotten a little ahead of myself with each territory has a name and number associated, PL1, Point Lobos 1, and so forth and so forth. And so the numbering, if you do volunteer, and you're wondering that some of them, if you look at a map, are kind of out of order. And that's because they were numbered from the very beginning. And then as more pairs came in, then more pairs made the numbering system a little wonky, but that's what happens. So I'm going to show you. This is an example. So this was an actual map from 2019. This was the 2019 map that we had made. Now a lot of the territories have kind of shifted or moved around. So this is not the most accurate map. There is a most accurate map on the Monterey Audubon website, in case you were wondering. But this is an example of the map of what I was talking about. So there's PB 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And then another one came in, and there's 12, and then there's 13, and there's 14, and 15. Oh, there's 15. And there's also a 16, and there's also a 17. This is an old map. But so we monitor every site once a week. So that's what me and the other biologists do. So we'll go to every site once a week. I went out this morning and I did most of them. Didn't have enough time to do all of them. That's just how it goes, because you want to give them enough time. So again, what we do, which is what I was talking about. So we monitor every week. This is PL7, and these are 3 little babies. As just a little side note. So we monitor each territory once a week for at least 30 minutes, but it's, as long as we need. So if we're seeing something kind of like behaviorally, does it look like they're nesting? Because we're looking for nesting success. And that's kind of one of the goals for that, is kind of saying like, are they nesting? What's the, how good are they doing? Do they need to be listed as endangered? Are they're species of conservation concern? So yeah, we'll collect a number of data. So BLOY, behavior. So it's kind of like, are they nesting? Are they not nesting? Are they territorial? Are they, I don't know, doing nothing, hanging out, whatever they're doing. Then it's also the number of eggs and chicks, age of chicks. If we know why there was a nest failure, if there was a nest failure, or if it succeeded, kind of all those sorts of things. Disturbance. And then also, this is also just stuff that the biologist and I do, is nest site characteristics, height of the nest. Is it online? Is it on the mainland? Is it on an island? Is there foot traffic? How close can the people get if there is foot traffic? And then we also do public outreach. So we're not the main people doing public outreach, but if we're out there, we're always happy to talk to people and kind of tell them what's going on, who are we looking at, what are they doing, why do we care? So that's all the things that we do, us as the scientists, but also the volunteers do that as well. They just don't do it. They don't need to do every site once a week. That's just me. So they can have like 1 or 2 sites and they can spend more time with them. Okay, so we are going to talk about the actual 2025 breeding season. So this was, the last season. This is MP10. These are her eggs. And so you can see she just has a little divot on the floor. And that's one of them here at Hopkins, MP10. So that was a couple years back. This wasn't the 2025 breeding season, but I did want a picture of eggs and I didn't have any from 2025. So anyways, so for 2025, there were 84 territories that were monitored. So I had about 51 territories. Jen, who's the other biologist, had about 33 territories. Not all territories have a territorial pair. And so the consistency is to still monitor them because some, they could come back, maybe one left, maybe another one came in. So that's why there's a territorial pairs and there's number of territories. So they're very territorial. And so that's how we're able to delineate where the territories are. And sometimes they'll be like kind of right on a line and one will call and then the other one will move. And if they're, okay with how far they are this way and how far they are that way, that's how they determine their territory. And they were having a fight about that in Hopkins earlier when I saw them right now. So their territory looks like it's going to be shifting, which is fine. It happens. Yes. So anyways, back to this, 73 territories were monitored. Only 49 nested. And so there was a total of 58 nesting attempts and 28 chicks fledged, which gives us, so 28 chicks fledged of both the South Coast and the North Coast. So that's what this number is. So that gives us about a 57% success rate. And so you're like, oh, okay, good. So that is better. It's kind of seeming from what I was talking about earlier. They're like, oh, well, that, the study was like, they're about 50%. So they're doing good, but that's not necessarily true. So the North Coast had 20 fledglings, which gives them an 80% success rate. And we had 8, which gave us a 33% success rate. So that's kind of showing the like, if you're averaging it together, yeah, it looks good. But looking at this versus looking at this, it's like certain areas are not doing it great. And that's kind of us. Well, us specifically here on the South Coast are not doing as great. So, we're trying to see what's going on and trying to see if we can help them get those numbers up. So also we had 46 community science volunteers and most are on the South Coast. That's just a side note. Anyways, so what you can do to help, if you have ever seen these signs, this one's a little blurry, but it says keep off, do not disturb nesting birds with us. There's a few rocks. So like Point Pinos is one of the rocks that are roped off for them nesting. There's one right next to Point Pinos, which is PL2, which is to the, what is this side? West side of them. I forget my directions sometimes. And so that one also will have a rock roped off if they're going to nest there. This is PB7, feeding the baby. That was actually last year. So yeah, so, to prevent disturbance, stay out of those marked areas. Pretty standard, like if the area is marked, don't go over there. You can go close, but not right up to there. And most of the disturbance for them is people, animals, so pets getting too close, and then drones. So those are the top 3. So that's why it's kind of just letting people know that they're there and just, get a little bit further away from them. Give them their space, let them have that. So those are kind of main ways to just help them by not really needing to do anything. Just kind of being like, oh, there's a nest, there's a rope there. I just won't go on the rope. Just go to another rock. And again, we try to mark them off with signs so that people aren't going to places that they don't know they're not supposed to go. So, we're not trying to be a jerk to people. We just want to help the birds because we love birds. So another thing you can do if you did want, which Shannon was talking about, is you can volunteer. So what that entails is you have one territory, maybe 2 or 3, if they're right next to each other, once a week. And you spend at least 30 minutes monitoring them. You can spend longer. You can spend the whole day monitoring them if you want, or you can spend 30 minutes, whatever works for you. And then, so that's the data. There's, are there eggs? Are there chicks? What are they doing? There's also a training, like Shannon was saying. So even if you didn't know, you would know. She will let you know in our training. And then, nesting success. So if you see like, oh, this one had a baby, the baby fledged, nesting success. If it failed, like, oh, maybe I saw a human guy walking over there and then it failed. So that's likely the cause. But also it's hard to tell because we're not out there all the time. So we can't just know. Also, if they're re-nesting, a lot of them will re-nest. Some of them will re-nest twice. PL13, which is by El Torito, oftentimes re-nests twice to do 3 nesting attempts to try to have a chick. So, checking re-nesting, and then just where they're nesting locations, which was earlier when I showed you guys that map that had all those squares and things. That's just kind of like, where are they nesting? What are they doing? Do they have babies? And then you enter the data. We have a Google sheet, a shared one, that we enter all of our data in to keep it consistent. And it has, kind of, what does it mean? How do you put it into there? So not trying to make it complicated, trying to make it as easy and as accessible to everyone. And now I'm going to show you a short little kind of compilation video. So here is PL8 and their child, and that is going to be MP6. Just 2 little babies there. So just to see some little videos of babies. They are very short because they're very short clips that I have taken in the field. All the pictures that we have seen here today are ones that I have taken. So I spent a lot of time out here. Okay, on to this. Oh no. Oh, and I am messing this up. There we go. Okay. And then thank you all for joining me. And also, this is during the non-breeding season, they will make large groups together. And here is an example at Pebble Beach.
Do you have any questions?
Yes, that's what I was gonna say. If anyone has any questions, feel free. Yes.
Do we ban oyster catchers?
Make sure you repeat the question to Judi after it's asked.
Okay. So the question was asked if we banned them. So we do not ban them. It's just never been part of what we were doing. So there was one that was banded, and she was banded at where, no, yeah, it was the Farallon, right? By Point Reyes. Yes, I remember it was by Point Reyes is Point Blue now, but she was banded in the Farallons, and so that's why for a little time there was a banded BLOY, and so we were able to monitor behavior from her because she was banded. But for one, it's just never been part of what they were doing specifically. They're also going to be hard to band because they will nest on rocks offshore, and so you're going to have to take a boat and climb up a rock, and their babies are mobile really fast, or not really fast, really soon after being born. So there's a lot of factors, and then when they started it, they just decided to not band it, and we have continued to not band the BLOY. There's just a lot of factors that would have to be put in to then ban them. Yes.
But why do they call them oyster catchers?
Okay, so the question was, why do they call them oyster catchers? So black oyster catchers were named after the Eurasian oyster catcher, and they have the same type of bill. So Eurasian oyster catchers will eat oysters, and so they do have a bill that is able to open up oysters. There's not a lot of oysters here, but they could eat oysters. So that's where the name of the oyster catcher comes from. Yeah, yes.
You see the egg is in the nest. Blown away.
Okay, and so it's like, how long does it take from them laying the eggs to then fledging? Okay, so that's the question. So
Successfully being an adult.
well, it was like usually what we're counting is to fledge, and so they're able to fly and kind of be off on their own, but they will stay with the parent for a little while after. So I'm gonna end this at fledging, and then I'm gonna go a little further and go into that part. So when the eggs are laid, it's about a month until they hatch, and then it's about a month and a half until they fledge, and then they'll stay with their parents for a few more months before they're able to go off on their own. So maybe like 2 more months. So that's like 4 or 5 months. 1, 2, 3, 4 and a half. 4 or 5 months. Yes. Yes.
Can you talk about the nesting?
Renesting?
So it's in a sense, it's really try to think how they're alive if they're need to be right.
Okay. So the question was like with renesting, how do they, how do they know they need a renest, and, will they renest? So one of the times that they will renest, or one example, is if they have eggs and the eggs are addled. So that just means not viable. So sometimes they'll be sitting on it and it'll be like a very long time past the time that they're supposed to be hatched. And after long enough, they realize these eggs are not going to hatch. And so that has happened before, that they'll go to another site and then they'll renest. And then oftentimes if they leave eggs unattended, they're going to get eaten by something, raccoons or skunks or other birds or things. So that would be one example of them renesting. Another example where they could renest is if they had chicks and the chicks actually hatched. They didn't fledge yet. They're a few weeks old or a few days old, depending, and something eats them. For some reason, they die, and it's like, if we're not there, we can't be sure what happened. So like something could eat it. It could have died. It could have a number of reasons. And then so they can renest after that. So it's like their chick is gone. And after a while, some of them won't renest. It depends on the bird. Some of them become very mad. There was one pair, was it PB8. Their chick died, and it was mad. They were mad the rest of the season. They were just like attacking other birds. There was a coyote that ran by and they tried to attack it. It was a whole bunch of stuff. So some of them are just too mad. It's not going to nest the whole season. Then they just left and they didn't want to go by their nest anymore. They just sat on the beach together, just mad about it, which is understandable. That's not a good thing. So that's another time that they would renest. Sometimes early on, they will just lose the eggs, like before it's being like, oh, this is too long, the eggs are addled. Just early on, they'll be like, okay, they have their eggs, and then something will go and, maybe eat the eggs, maybe whatever, they get smushed or something by a pelican who's walking on them, which has happened with the brown pelicans, the juveniles, and they'll just walk and they have their big feet and they're just like, I wasn't looking. And then they'll be like, okay, this egg was like, they laid an egg, they had it for maybe a week, then they'll go and like, okay, we know it's gone. So it's just kind of a point for them to know that it's gone. So they don't renest if they have one that they think is going to survive, if that answers the question.
Yeah, so they have a lot of like these eggs.
Yeah.
They go by, and they live in the same breeding.
Yeah, in the same breeding season. So we've seen them renest twice before in the same breeding season. So the one by El Torito MP13, that one we've seen it renest twice. So it had, a nest and something happened, like the chicks or eggs were lost, whatever the reason. And then it renests and you're like, okay. And then something happens again. And then you think like, okay, that's kind of it. Because not a lot of times, I guess most of the time for ours that we've that I've seen is that they'll renest once and then generally kind of like, oh, that's it. But some of them will renest another time. And 13 is one that generally renests twice if they failed. And then a lot of times, the third time, then they have the babies and they survive. And you're like, okay, so that's probably why they're ready to renest, because they know like, we can do this. We got this. We just got to keep trying. Yes.
This is a crazy question. That's why I asked about banding.
Yes.
You think over this period of time, are you able to identify individuals? It's a hard question.
Yeah, so most of them I cannot identify, but yes, and that's why like banding would really be helpful to be like, this is definitely this individual. And like that band, so the banded one that I mentioned in 2019 was a female. They call her the banded female. She doesn't have a name. So that's her name. But I remember that she was with a male, and I know that they had a nesting attempt and it failed. And he kicked her out and he got a new wife. Yeah, he got a new wife. And then she went to go live with all the BLOYs who don't have partners, and they just all have, so they're, it's called a neutral zone is what we call it. And they're just like unattached BLOYs. So they could either be too young, you know, maybe they're like, we're not old enough, or they just don't have somebody. And so because she was banded, we were able to see that. Then she had to go live over there with all of them and just have the single life with all her single friends. So, I mean, there is a lot of things that we would be able to see with banding, but it's just not feasible right now. But yes, I do agree. Like if they were all banded, then you can be like this guy, and then maybe they went over there now, or they died, or
Are they returning the same nest?
yeah.
They distributing further? I mean,
Some of them
behavior.
Some of them will, like, because they will make large flocks like this picture during the non-breeding season, but some will stay in their area the whole time. So like, and they'll still be like, I'm still here. This is my same spot. And so for those ones, it seems like those are probably the same ones that were nesting there. And they're like, this is a really good spot. I don't want to leave. I'll never leave here. And then maybe over time, you know, you don't know if maybe one died and one came in, and it is, you know, hard to be, you know, we can't be 100% sure that we're like, this is the same pair that's been here since we started the project, or like, is this a different pair, or did both of them leave? Did one of them leave? But yeah, it is helpful. Okay, yes.
Do you have a sense of how big the population or how the size might increase with your sense of how much territory is available that's unoccupied by breeding pairs?
Do you mean with like how many more, or what is
like are they maxed out? Have they used up all the territory that
is available here?
Right.
So she was asking the question, before I forget to ask the question ahead of time, is if there's all the territory that can be taken has been taken. And I feel like the answer is no, in that there are some that have nested and they will abandon an area. And so, I mean, they did nest there in the past, and then they left and they didn't nest there. So that is an area where one could nest. And why they're not nesting the next year, or why they left, is a mystery, and why nobody else takes the spot. So there are areas where they could nest, whether it's that, you know, there could be a number of reasons. Some of them, it's like, I think, well, there's this one area like to this way, past the beach, and that one is like right on the shore, and I feel like that's a lot of easy for predators to get to them. So there has been one that nested there, that's MP14, but they haven't nested there in a while. And my thought for that one is it's not a good spot because there's a lot of predators that can get to them, you know, like, again, like raccoons, skunks, foxes, random cats, and things. So, but sometimes some will nest and they'll be like right on the shore, right by the people, and they'll succeed. So also it just varies. So I do think there's more territories, or there's area that other BLOYs could inhabit if they wanted to. Yes.
You may have covered this, but what's the life expectancy and how many times will a female reproduce during her life?
Okay, so the question was life expectancy. So right now their life expectancy is about 14 years, and they don't reach maturity until about 3 to 5 years. So they could potentially then have maybe like 10, well, not 10, I was gonna say 10, but it's in 10 years. So their chick size or their egg size is between 1 to 3. It averages at 2 because that's the average of 1 and 3. And so potentially, if you were like every year they successfully did it and they had, all their chicks made it every year, you could have 30 for one. But it's again like the number of factors and location and food availability, a number of things. It's also speculated that they could live longer. Because I know there's one at the Monterey Aquarium. I think she's like 28 or 32.
32.
She's 32. I was like, I know the last time I checked, she was 28. So they can live longer. There was also, I think this was an American oystercatcher. I can't remember. There was one in Europe that was tagged, and that one, it's not a black oystercatcher. It's just a different type of oystercatcher, which is why it makes me hopeful that they could live longer. There was an oystercatcher, which I think it was the blackish oystercatcher, but I can check my notes later. And it lived to 46. So that, for me, thinks then there is something that an oystercatcher, not our oystercatcher, because that's, I'm not saying that it's them, but could potentially live longer than they have been. So they could be living longer and we could just not know it because they're not tagged. That's what I was like, and because they're not tagged. Yes. Yes.
Judith, I've been
Mhm.
Mr. 7 and the page
MP7 or, okay.
and 19 and 10 and 8. And today I was out and MP10 started to vocalize, and then they flew really fast in circles, but they did something that I didn't see before. They came out right into the ice pan.
Mhm.
I've only ever seen them on the beach or go out on the rocks. I've never seen them inland like that. And they did it about 3 times.
Okay.
So it's not
I have. So what she was talking about is, so black oystercatchers are, well, side note, black oystercatchers are the apex predator of the tidal zone. They stay pretty much only in the rocky intertidal zone. But what she was saying is that she saw them go more inland over the ice plant. And I have seen that before when they're, like one of them was chasing out a gull who was trying to eat their eggs. So it seems like it can be like a territorial, like trying to get something away, because I've seen it only twice. And so it's not a common thing for them to go even like a little kind of ways in, like, I mean, they'll go like a tiny bit, like they'll go to the beach. They'll go a little bit closer to the beach, but not really like inland, like she was talking about. So it seems like they could have been like having a territorial dispute. They were having a territorial dispute earlier with 8, and I think that their territory is kind of shifting. Of 8, I think, wants to go a little more this way, and 10 doesn't want to give them as much room. And so they've been kind of like, both of them came up mad earlier, I saw, for 10, and then 8 left, and then 8 came back. 8 is on that side and 10 is on this side. For the people who don't know what it is, because I don't have a map. But there's like, their boundary of when they decide is that. And so they're having a territorial dispute of how far they want the line to go. So it seems like most likely that they're kind of having a fight with each other, and they ended up going a little further inland than generally they do. And then 19's over there by himself, or by themselves, because it's a pair, and they're fine. They sometimes argue with 7, and it's fine. I heard them arguing with 7 earlier, and they made a territorial call, and then they sat back down and they took a nap. They're not too concerned. They're like, they're fine. We're cool. Yes.
A question about predators. So we know we lose our chicks all the time. I feel like all I've ever heard for like confirmed predators is like that one crazy brown pelican incident, and then maybe a peregrine falcon. But like, is there any other documented like who is eating our babies? That's the question I want to know.
So the question was of predators. So I think those are the only ones that I've seen like straight up documented. One time there was yes.
Great blue heron.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that one. There was a great blue heron.
Yep.
That ate the babies. Oh, was that the one that was PL7?
Pebble Beach.
Oh, okay. Well, because
That weird little rock with the.
yeah. Because PB10, I mean, sorry, am I thinking PB10? Who am I thinking of? I'm trying to think of what else. Oh, because PL7, they used to nest on this one rock in Whalers Cove. And then for the longest time, there was a great blue heron there all the time. And then they stopped nesting there. And I'm suspecting that great blue heron either ate their eggs or their babies. But also, we didn't see it, so we don't know 100%. But
North of Bird Rock.
which one?
North of Bird Rock.
Oh yeah, so 10 is like China Rock, and then it was like right there.
Yeah, it's that weird rock with the little.
Right, that big rock there.
The weird rock with the ice cream.
Yeah. The great blue heron was circling around.
Uh-huh.
I mean, they just went at it for an hour.
Oh, one of
I got like 300 pictures of it, just like attacking and.
then fighting them.
Yeah, she was so exhausted. The second the heron left, and it didn't go very far, she collapsed and she took all the chicks underneath her.
Well, that's also probably why they're like, the heron's like, you're gonna be tired and I'll just come get her later.
Because the next day I went back like first thing in the morning
and it was gone. There was one time, I don't think it was gonna eat them, but there was one time that they weren't nesting, but there was a red-tailed hawk just like hanging out at John Denver Rock, and they were dive bombing it, but they hadn't nested yet. And I was like, I'm not sure that red tail would have eaten it, but they could eat it. Red tail, that's all like red tails eat whatever they can get. So there's just not a lot of like actually seeing it. But I also do think that I remember one time that I saw that coyote on the beach, pretty sure he was going to try to eat them. And I've seen like, I remember there was a skunk that I saw, and I was like, that skunk was like just over here in Pacific Grove. And I was like, that skunk, if they're on shore, could easily go and get the eggs. There could be and then, raccoons as well. I remember there was a raccoon one time, and then there was a dead raccoon. And I was like, oh, that was random. So at least, I mean, just saying that there's a number of predators around here, but it's just hard to see it actually in action of them eating the eggs. But yeah, that one time when that brown pelican tried to eat the baby, if you guys don't know, there was one time, it was in Point Lobos, there's brown pelican, there was trying to eat some chicks from this black oystercatcher, and the pair was trying to fight them off, and it didn't get them, and then he kicked one into the ocean. That's what happened. I saw the pictures. So brown pelicans, juvenile brown pelicans are jerks, is my end of my story. Sorry, yes, Vicky.
P7 one time, there was a red-shouldered hawk.
Oh yeah, that one.
And MP7, it was covering prey on the ground, and MP7 thought it was a chick. And it screamed, flying around the Parkin's meadows. Minutes, just screaming. Turned out it wasn't the chick, it was a vulture or something. But it was a perceived predator.
Yeah, I think it's because I've seen that with like a predator, and that's why I was like, the only thing I could think of, like maybe it was because they were having a territorial dispute, and ended up going a little too far inland, but definitely a predator is one reason that they would kind of go more inland than they typically go, for sure. Okay, yes.
Were you concerned about predation by domestic cats and dogs?
So there is a number, well, so the main reason for disturbance is number one, humans, and number two is pets, mostly of them being dogs. And I would also wonder, because cats are definitely contributing to the decline of a number of bird species like feral cats and people who leave their cats to go outside. So I wouldn't put it past that to definitely be an issue. And like one time I was walking around Pacific Grove, I was walking that way to go look, and there was a random cat just walking down the street. And I was like, oh, that's weird. And then somebody was like, is that your cat? And I was like, no, I don't know whose cat this is. This is just a random cat that's walking down the street because cats are just outside and I don't know what it's doing. And then it left. And I mean, it could definitely get one that was on land, like the egg or like the chicks. The chicks are mobile pretty soon after being born. And sometimes they'll like go into weird spots. And if their parents are also like, well, I have to manage 3 chicks and there's 2 parents, one could like sneak away and then go and get eaten. So there's not like confirmed data on that, but I definitely think that's a possibility. Highly likely. Sorry. Yes. Go first.
Is there any monitoring happening south of Point Lobos that you're aware of?
So the question was, if there's any monitoring south of Point Lobos. I don't think there's like directly south of Point Lobos, because there's like San Luis Obispo has their own monitoring, but that's not, that's like way there. That's not like just south. So for us, it ends at Point Lobos.
So we
There's
have the
some-
most robust black oystercatcher monitoring program that has continued on since Audubon, California stopped funding it. There used to be monitoring throughout the whole coastline. There's a few chapters along the coast that still do a little bit of monitoring here and there, but nothing on the scale that we're doing.
Mm-hmm. Sorry. Yes.
Donation.
Yes.
Watching, maybe 30 minutes, mow down a bunch of.
There's just a lot of limpets. So you're talking about black oystercatchers eating a lot. So the Monterey Bay in general is a very productive area due to upwelling in the Monterey Bay Canyon that brings that cool nutrient-rich water up into the higher levels where the invertebrates can get them, and it goes up the ecosystem to like the invertebrates to the fish, and then like birds and otters and things can eat them too. So we're in a very productive area for wildlife because of the Monterey Canyon. Yes.
To what extent is the data that's been collected over these years available to be downloaded?
Okay, so the give me a second. The availability of data to be collected. So all of our papers from when we've started are available on the Monterey Audubon website. So you can just.
Not the raw data.
So we have our end of the year report that's going to be on the Monterey Audubon website. But if you wanted to see that raw data happening, then you would volunteer and you would be on the Google Doc. And that's how you would see like that actual data. So like every year we have a new Google Doc for our data that we're inputting. So for me, it's weekly, and for some people it's weekly, some people it's monthly, however many times they want to get out there. And then you can see kind of all that data happening in live action. And so I don't have a Google Doc sheet with me right now, actually. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. I do not, actually. That's what I was like, do I have it? I just don't have it. But then it tells you like what day they're doing it, how long the person was out, what the BLOY were doing, how many were there, what was happening. And so that data is not as, not as exciting, not as conclusive yet, because it's kind of happening live. And so that's why what we do is have an end of the year report to have all of that conclusive data for everybody to access. But we don't have anything of like, unless you're volunteering, you wouldn't see it like day to day.
Certainly, if a researcher contacted us and wanted to look at the data, we would make that happen for them to be able to see it.
Oh, yeah.
We're not hoarding all of our data saying nobody can see it. It's just not easily accessible for the general public like the annual reports are that are on the website.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's more, I don't know, there's a lot of certain times that you'll look at the data and it'll just be like one sheet, and maybe this sheet there's not a lot going on, and it'll just be like unknown, nothing's happening. And so you'll see like unknown, 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 and then maybe at one point it's like, oh, they're nesting. And so that'll happen sometimes, like, well, I'll look at sheets and you're like, okay, nothing's happening. Okay, one's nesting. And it's like, okay, this nested, this did, blah, blah, blah. And then maybe it failed. And you're like, oh, that's sad. And then like, we're continuing monitoring through the whole season. So just because they failed, we're not going to stop monitoring them. And then maybe they don't renest. And then so for that data, it's like, okay, you saw that they weren't nesting. They did nest. They didn't nest again the rest of the season. So, I mean, that is raw data there, but it's not as user friendly for people. But I mean, you can volunteer and look at it and see the data, but that's why we try to do an end of the year. So it kind of puts everything together and makes it easier to read.
Sheets are saved.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I know Jen has them all saved and Rick has them too. So Jen is the other biologist. Rick is the regional coordinator. And if you volunteer, or if you're going to volunteer, then you either have met Rick or will meet Rick. His name is Rick Hanks. So that's who that is. Okay. Yes.
You mentioned that drones are an issue. What percentage of the problem are they?
So they're not, like, with more drones. I don't remember the percentage off the top of my head. Well, that paper that was published with National Audubon does have a percentage, and I can't remember it off the top of my head because I have that paper at home, but I don't have it with me. But it does have a percentage, and that's why it was like this percent is people, this percent is pet, this percent is drone. So I can't remember off the top of my head. But with people being able to access more drones, there have been more of a problem with it, of like hobbyists being able to just be like, I'm just going to buy a drone and just fly it wherever, even though you're supposed to have like a permit and be, okayed by the FAA, and you can't fly over certain areas. And so there are regulations, but that doesn't mean everybody follows those rules. But so it's been shown that with the increase of drone use, they have been more of a problem, and they don't like drones, especially when they're nesting. And they don't do it as much, but gulls will definitely chase down the drone if they're nesting and it's too close. And then we've monitored some drone flights that they've had, different groups like researchers. I know Jen monitored some drone flights for Mbari a while back. So there's a number of them. And so just kind of, we don't know specifically. So we do kind of want that data. So we do have some data on them being disturbed by drone flights, but they're just kind of them going up in popularity is having them go up in being a problem. But I can't remember off the top of my head the number. But in that paper, it does have it. That other paper that I had mentioned with Weinstein et al., it does have a percentage that they have found for like overall. Okay. Yes.
So in your presentation, you mentioned about 80% of success rate in the northern part and then 33% in the southern part.
Mm-hmm.
How do you explain the difference? Is your hypothesis or explanations?
Okay, so we're talking about like the different success rates in the North Coast versus the South Coast. And that's what I was like, we don't know 100%. I feel like part of it, and I feel as in like my thoughts of doing research, I don't just have random feelings. But I feel like part of it is that there are certain areas in the North Coast that are just not accessible to people. Like, what is it called? There's like a farm.
The ranch?
Wilder Ranch?
Wilder Ranch. Yes. I was like, there's a name and there's a ranch and I can't remember. But like Wilder Ranch, is one area. And there's just kind of like, they're not, like people could go there. And I don't know how many people go there. Also because it's not my area. It's harder for me to kind of give speculation of what happens up there specifically. So Jen would know more of what she thinks. So from not knowing that area as well, very well as she does, I just think that there's less areas for people to be able to access, but also I could be wrong because I don't go there a lot. But I know Wilder Ranch is one of the areas where it's like, they'll nest under there. But here, I mean, there's a lot of people. There are also a lot of tourists over there. So that's also why I'm like not saying that we have more tourists than they have. They also have a lot of tourists. And there's like one rock, Pescadero Rock. I feel like there's a lot, especially like here, Pebble Beach, especially Point Lobos being, was it the crown jewel of the state park system? So everybody wants to go to Point Lobos. I remember during 2020, there was nobody in Point Lobos. And we still went to monitor because we have permits from state parks to monitor. And they did very good that year when there was nobody there. They had a very good success rate. So that's why I think people are a problem. Okay, yes.
So can you just clarify exactly what is the meaning of
Success rate, you said? Okay. Okay, sorry. So they were saying, or he was saying, what's the meaning of success rate? And it's like if they made it to fledging. And so fledging is like that they're able to fly and go off on their own.
No, yeah, I understand.
Mm-hmm.
But what is the starting point? Is to say, I don't know, 55% were successful.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Wait, I do have that. That is why I brought my iPad to remember this. Because it's, so where was it? So for that one, so for the South Coast, there were 24 breeding pairs with 28 nesting attempts. And there was 61 eggs and 27 chicks. So the total, so we're starting with 61 eggs that happened. So only 27 of them hatched to become chicks and only 8 fledged. So only 8 survived out of that 61 that were laid. Mm-hmm. So it's like, yeah, we're trying to start from like, okay, so that's, because I mean, like that's our kind of our base, because it's like, well, if they didn't have any eggs, then they're not gonna be able to fledge. But yeah, so it's like from that 61, we got 8 for the South Coast, which is not good.
Questions?
That's what I was like, or if you have any more questions. Oh yes.
No,
Vicky,
yeah.
yeah.
You'll be the last question.
Okay.
Did you choose the pairs that will be followed if we get to a point where we can't follow?
Oh, for the index study? So the pairs were randomly selected. So there was like a book of random numbers is actually what it is. Rick showed me. Rick is the one he and I were talking about this. And there's a book of random numbers and you open it to a page and it gives you random numbers. So it's like completely random. So humans making random assumptions are not random, as just how it works. And so with those how they were picked. So they were like, they're nesting pairs and then they're picked at random, so that it can be a truly random thing and not like, well, this one's my favorite, so I'm going to pick this one. This one I don't really like, so I'm not going to pick them. So that's how they came up with that numbers for the index survey. Yes.
Judi?
Thank you again, Judi. That was wonderful. I just wanted to share just one little, maybe not little quick thing, but I wanted to share something else with you all. So last month at our board meeting, our board of directors adopted a new strategic plan to guide us for the next 3-ish years. And one of the things that we discovered through the strategic planning process was no surprise to us, but the community looks to us as a force for conservation and that we do good conservation work. And what we identified from the board, the conservation work that we do is our long-term monitoring projects, like the Black Oystercatcher monitoring project, the Point Pino Sea Watch, and the up-and-coming Seaside Heerman's Gulls project that we are working on. If you don't know that story, come talk to me about it. It's a really cool story. And we have committed to, one of our goals for our strategic plan is that Jennifer and Judi and Rick are going to pull together a 10-year summary of the data, and then we're going to look to have it published in a peer-reviewed journal. We are trying to also have our Sea Watch data. We've got 10 years of Sea Watch data published in a peer-reviewed journal. And we also, we haven't figured out the exact timeline on it, but we did just hire Deb as our volunteer and community engagement manager, but we do want to hire another employee in the future, and that kind of depends on our funding and donations from people like you. Little plug there, sorry, I had to. But we want to hire a conservation director in the next couple of years as well to help direct all of our conservation initiatives so that we can give more thoughtful input into how we are doing these studies. The Black Oystercatcher monitoring project is a pretty great model. We use the model that was put on by the scientists from National Audubon Society in Audubon, California, when they all put it together. But we want to make sure that we're interacting with the latest and greatest conservation issues here on the Monterey Peninsula and throughout Monterey County, throughout San Benito County, and into Santa Cruz County, as that is technically what all of our jurisdiction is. So thank you for coming in and attending a talk like this tonight so that we can help get more eyes on our project. Talk to your friends about all of our conservation projects. If you haven't renewed your membership yet this year, you can do so online. We have some envelopes in the back if you want to mail us a check. I do have all of our swag here tonight. So our beanies, our baseball caps, our Yeti water bottles, our water bottle stickers, and I have the Monterey Birds book back there as well. And we can take cash or card or check for those tonight as well. Anyways, feel free to stay and enjoy some refreshments and beverages that we've got in the back. And we look forward to seeing you next time.
Yeah.
All day, and so I usually do it. Sometimes somebody. Oh, this one. So I was back here. For 30 minutes.